Well, good morning and good afternoon, maybe even good evening to everybody tuned in. Welcome to our webinar today, How to Boost Your Business with Online Reviews. My name is Jeff Toyster, and this is something I'm really interested in because I focus on customer service, but I always like to get customer feedback. And so today we're going to talk about a really, I think, unique part about customer feedback, which is when it goes online. And I know a lot of businesses, particularly small businesses, are worried about what customers are saying and worried about negative feedback. We're going to talk about how to turn that into a positive today. So I needed to get some backup on this webinar. I needed to tap into an expert. So I asked my friend, Jess Green Pearson, who's the Director of Go-to-Market at Womply, to join me today on the webinar. So Jess, great to have you. How are you?
Thanks so much, Jeff. It's great to be here. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, even though it's raining in San Diego, which is never supposed to happen.
Oh, man.
And Liz is new to San Diego and thinks this is what happens all the time. So it'll get better, I promise.
Well, I am super passionate about helping small businesses thrive. So one way that they can do that is by really harnessing the power in review sites. So really excited to be talking with you all about that today.
And when we say talking with y'all, we really mean it. We want to make this interactive. So we're going to do a couple different things throughout the webinar. And at the end, Jess and I are going to answer your questions. So that chat box, if you can find it, you can share your questions at any time, and we'll do our best to respond to you. We're also going to use some polling. So I'm going to launch a poll right now. And my question to you is, are you actively using review sites right now? And I really mean on the business side. So not so much as a consumer, but on the business side, are you using any review sites, whether it's Yelp, OpenTable, Facebook, Google, TripAdvisor, Trustpilot? We probably go on and on and on. So we'll just leave this up for a few seconds. So Jess, I don't know if you can see the results on your screen. Looks like we're 50-50 right now.
Let me see. Oh, I do see the results. Yes.
Which is interesting. It means, I imagine, and this is where the chat box can come in. If you're on the webinar today, it might be because you're using these review sites and you want to learn how to use them better. Or it might be because you're thinking, I guess I really have to get on those review sites. I'm not using them now. Where do I get started? So either way, we'll have maybe some beginners today and maybe some veterans who are just looking for some tips.
Yeah, we found that some folks are a little bit hesitant to try them out. They're a little bit nervous about, being such a public channel and talking about their business. So if you fall into that camp, A, you're not alone, and B, you're in the right place because we can walk you through some of that today.
That's true. I like that message. You're not alone. All right, I'm going to end the poll. So we're at 50-50. 50% say yes, we're using review sites. 50% say no. We'll end the poll now. And so that's one way we'll interact. We've got a couple more polls coming along. If you could find that chat box, it looks like a little chat icon. I'm probably not describing it too well, but I hope you know what I mean. And for those of you on the live webinar, if you'd let us know, for those of you who say yes, which review sites are you using? And if you said, no, we're not using them, just look at what others are saying just to get a flavor for what review sites businesses are currently using now. So just give us an example or two via chat. And while you're doing that, I want to share a couple things with you. If you're tuned into the live webinar today, we are recording it. And a couple hours after the webinar, we'll send you a link so you get to see the replay. And if you're watching on the replay, thank you. We'll make sure that there's certain things I know you can't see, like the results in the chat box and the polls. So I'll make sure that I describe those to you. So let me be quiet for just a moment. And again, if you're on the webinar, share with us maybe one review site that your business is currently using. Okay, we've got either a longer delay than I expected or a shyer group than I expected. That's okay. I suspect just the results might come in a moment. Thanks, Haley. I appreciate it. All right, Google reviews, Glassdoor, Facebook reviews. Excellent. I hadn't even thought about I mean, there's so many review sites. I hadn't even thought about Glassdoor, but that's becoming increasingly important for employers. So well done, Haley. That's awesome. I'm sure we'll get some other people, but Jess, I want to turn this over to you to ask you, what are you seeing at Womply?
Yeah, so we have over 150,000 customers, and those are all small businesses spread across the United States. So we've got a pretty big data set to work from here. But far and away, the sites that we're seeing use the most for reviews from our customers are Google, Yelp, Facebook, and TripAdvisor. Now, there's certainly some outliers depending upon your business model, your type of business. OpenTable for restaurants is another great example. But from our experience, these are the ones that we're seeing the most.
All right. So I want to share with you all the customer's perspective. Which review site do customers most depend on? And to tee this off a little bit, I recently did some research, and I wanted to ask this question. And I asked over 1,000 adults in the US, what review site are you most likely to use, or do you use most often? I think most of us, if you put your consumer hat on for a moment, you probably use multiple sites. And Jess, you're so right. You know, if I'm looking for a restaurant, I might be more likely to look at OpenTable, but I'm not going to look at OpenTable if I'm looking for a place to get new tires. So there's certainly some context involved. So here is the results of my study, over 1,000 consumers, and look at the big Pac-Man sized slice of pie right there. Google is big. Yelp, which we've been afraid of for a while, was number 3 on the list. TripAdvisor, okay, that's another one where there's a bit of context, but Google is big. Now, I have to give everybody a caveat here, which is I used Google surveys to generate this data. And so I was worried that that might bias people towards automatically picking Google. So what I did was I kind of checked this with a much smaller survey to more of a, what do you call it, a convenience sample. I sent it to people I know, and the results were exactly the same. So this would not hold up in a peer-reviewed academic paper, but in terms of generating some insight, I think it's pretty valid. Now, the question is, if it's Google, though, what else? What should we do with that? And I want to pause and ask another really quick poll question, which is, let me, in this poll here, are you using, Google calls it Google My Business. Are you active? Is your business active on Google My Business? So this is the one that most of our customers say that they're looking at. And by active, I mean you keep your profile up to date. And even if you don't respond to every review, maybe you at least look at reviews. So you're actively looking at it versus, I would say, inactive might be you're not on it at all, or you set up your profile, your business profile at some point in time and haven't looked at it for a while. So let me be quiet for just a moment. And if you will, respond to that poll to let us know, are you active on Google My Business? And if you're not using this, of course, the answer would be no, if you're not using any review sites.
It's fun to see these numbers come in and change as folks are answering the poll.
All right, we're going to give it a few more seconds here. Right now we're at, if you're watching the replay, I can tell you that the poll right now is 40% says, yes, we're active. 60% say, no, we are not active on Google My Business, which is okay. That's why you're on the webinar today. That's an opportunity. Okay, I'm going to give you about 2 more seconds and we'll close down the poll. All right, so we're finishing we finished at 33% yes, 67% said no. I would call this low-hanging fruit then. Let's talk about this just a little bit. So according to HubSpot, Google owns about 70% of all search traffic and 85% of mobile search. And when you compare that, or pair that, I should say, with Google is the most popular review site for customers, Google really becomes the way that people search reviews when they don't realize they're searching reviews. And it's kind of a natural behavior. So let me give you an example. A while back, I had to go to Watertown, South Dakota to give a presentation. And I had never been to Watertown before. And it turns out to be a very charming town. And I had a great experience, but I didn't know anything about it really before I went there. So I wanted to find a restaurant before I arrived so I can just drop my stuff at the hotel. I'm going to get in kind of late. Where can I get a casual bite to eat? So this is my Google search, right? I don't think to go to a specific place like OpenTable or Yelp. I just Google, because my browser was open, restaurant, Watertown, ST for South Dakota. And I want you to look at what happens here and think about, does this happen when customers are just searching for your business, whether it's a tire shop or a dry cleaner or a consulting agency? It doesn't have to be a restaurant, but are they searching for your business? Look at what happens when I did my search. Google gave me 3 restaurants, a map where each restaurant is located, and the star review for each one. Now, how did those restaurants get served up versus any other restaurant in town? Well, a lot of it has to do with the active profile that each of these restaurants have. They have an active Google My Business profile. And if you notice, they have a lot of reviews. And not only that, they have a lot of positive reviews. And that's really important, because if we have a lot of positive reviews on Google My Business, when people are just naturally searching Google, Google's thinking, hey, this is probably some really strong suggestions. Let me share those with you. So if you want your business to get noticed, this is kind of the key. The other review sites might be very helpful to your business. And I would say there's some context there, right? But Google generally is probably going to be the place where most of your customers are searching, and you can increase your searchability, or your findability, I should say, by having a really good active profile. So with that, then I want to kind of share with you, because the thing that always comes up is, well, what if we get negative reviews? What if I go all in and then people say bad things about my business online, which happens. In fact, there was a study that was done. It was a few years ago. I think it was 2013. They found out about roughly, I'm probably slightly off on the numbers, but roughly 15% of Yelp reviews are fakes. So it definitely happens. And then there's a lot of fake reviews too. Okay. So what can we do about that? Well, this is really interesting. There was a study done at Northwestern University, and they found 2 things that I think are really helpful to us here. One is 80% of customers seek out negative reviews. So when I'm looking for a restaurant in Watertown, South Dakota, and I see these restaurants with all these great reputations, I actually look for the bad reviews. When people are angry, what do they say? And is it petty? Because most of us as customers know a lot of people just write petty reviews. Or does it seem to be some really legitimate feedback? And the researchers also found that the optimal rating is not 5 stars. The optimal rating is about 4.2 to 4.5 stars. In other words, higher than that, customers start to suspect something's fishy going on. Lower than that, you don't have the greatest reputation. But here, negative reviews are actually helping the business by making it feel more authentic and feel more real. Now, of course, the other side of that is when you get a negative review, if there's something that's legitimate in that review, you can use that to improve your service and ultimately attract more customers that way. So I want to ask you another poll question here. Let me get rid of the Google My Business. Does your business respond to online reviews? And your options are, yes, we try to respond to all reviews, whether it's Google My Business or other platforms. We respond to some reviews. So maybe you respond to negative reviews only or positive reviews only. Or the answer is no, we don't typically respond to reviews. So let me leave this up here for just a few seconds. And while you're responding, I know some of you are wondering, Jeff, which restaurant did you choose in Watertown, South Dakota? And I chose Guadalajara, because they had an excellent rating and it turned out to be a very good choice. So I've eliminated the mystery there. And I had a good time. All right, so it looks like 20% are saying yes, we respond to all reviews, 40% some, 40% no. Jess, are these results, would you have predicted these results? Or are they a little surprising to you?
I would have predicted this, frankly. I think, like I said, a lot of folks are, a little bit hesitant to engage with their customers in such a public forum. And those who are replying, maybe they're replying to just the positives, but not the negatives, or vice versa. So this is spot on where I thought we might be.
Okay. And I would agree. I don't see a lot of businesses regularly responding to reviews. In fact, it stands out. It's a little unusual. I'm going to end the poll now. That's going to give you, I think, a caveat here. Jess, I'm wondering if you can share with us a little bit about what happens when you do respond to reviews.
Yeah, I'd love to. And it's funny that you mentioned something fishy going on, because something fishy is going on at Seafood Kitchen in Florida. No. But it's good. It's the best way possible. So this is Nathan at Seafood Kitchen in Atlantic Beach, Florida. They're one of our customers. And first thing each morning, Nathan reads his restaurant reviews on the sites that he's on. So he's on Yelp, Google, and TripAdvisor. He's not looking for an ego boost, though. He's specifically searching out those negative reviews. The reason, he's super proud of the food that they put out. And if somebody doesn't like it, he wants to know about it, right? So he wants to know, is there something I can improve upon? But he also sees it as an opportunity to engage with customers that are dissatisfied. So he often reaches out to them and sees if they're, just tries to understand what went wrong and offer them a free meal, offer for them to come back on the house, give it another shot. And almost every time he does this, the customer takes him up on that offer and they have a great experience. That's right. He's able to turn their frown upside down, which is huge. And what you see here on the left side of the screen is an example from Yelp where the customer has actually gone back and updated their bad review to make it a good one after doing that. So why does this work? Well, it makes the customer feel special, that Nathan cares about them. He cares about his restaurant. He cares about his customers. And guess what? Prospective customers see this too. So it can make or break their decision to visit his restaurant for the very first time. They are looking for, how do they engage with their customers? How would I be treated if I go there? And if they're having a positive experience and they're seeing that on Yelp, they're more likely to come and visit your business for the first time. Research shows that up to 70% of complaining customers will use your business again if their problems are resolved. And Nathan's really mastered that art. And I'll turn it back to you, Jeff.
So, I think that's fascinating, Jess, which is, for me, a business owner, I think it takes a lot of emotional intelligence to see a negative review and respond in a constructive format. But we saw earlier in the poll that not everyone's responding to every review, but what really stands out to me is the business that responds to a positive review. Hey, thanks so much. That tells you the business owner is listening. And then they also respond to the negative review in a very constructive type of way. And I love the example that you just shared, because not only is it constructive, but just I'm thinking about the benefits of, I learned how to improve, which is good, so that I don't get another negative review for the same issue. But then I also might be able to turn that individual around. And I think one of the things hopefully we've established here for those of you tuning in, that online reviews are going to happen whether you like it or not. But if you are working with them appropriately, they become free advertising for your business. And what powerful advertising to see a customer saying, I had a bad experience, and then the business owner reached out to me and made it awesome. And now now I definitely would recommend this. And so I want to talk a little bit about how you can get more reviews for your business. Because if you take anything away from the webinar today, it should be that more reviews is going to have a positive impact on customers finding you and feeling good about your business. And particularly on Google, although I think some of the other sites, depending on kind of where your focus, can be helpful too. So how can you get more reviews? I want to start by actually saying, here's one thing you do not want to do, and it can ruin your credibility, which is survey begging. And survey begging, if you're not familiar with this, this is when an employer or business is actively soliciting a positive survey. So it could be something we've probably all had this. If you've gotten your car serviced at a dealership, where they will pull you aside and say, look, I'm going to lose money. It will cost me my bonus if you give me anything less than a 10 on that survey. Please, please, please give me a 10. That's an example of survey begging. And what it does is it actually obscures the real feedback. And most of the online review sites, if not all of them, actually have some prohibitions against a business doing that, actively asking you to give them a positive review. So don't do that. It's a bad practice. I think it leaves a bad taste in your customers' mouths. And so if you can't do that, then what can you do? Jess, I know you've got a few best practices. What should business owners and customer service leaders do if they can't beg for more surveys?
Yeah, and this is actually more simple than it seems. You just have to ask, really. But I have a few tips for you and how to go about it, and definitely some tips around how not to go about it. So as far as what you should do, you can put up signage, including official stickers from sites like Yelp, encouraging your customers to leave you a review. You can also make a verbal request while your customer is still at your place of business, maybe when they're done checking out or signing your credit card receipt, that kind of thing. You can also email or text your customers a link to review your business after they leave. That can be really a super positive way to do it too, because you can actually link to the review site straight to your business. So it's really easy for the customer to give you that review. Now, no matter how you approach it, there are some things you should never do, or you could hurt your business, or you could even get in trouble with the review site. So you don't want to do any of those. But you should not trade positive reviews for discounts or gifts. So don't bribe your customers. Hey, if you give me a 5-star review, I'll give you a free latte. You shouldn't ask your customers to leave a 5-star review, like you mentioned, Jeff. I know I've been in retail shops where I felt like the transaction was going great, the service was great. I would have been inclined to give them a positive review, but when they specifically asked me to leave a 5-star review, that left a really bad taste in my mouth. And definitely, I know nobody on the webinar would do this. You guys are better than that, but don't threaten unhappy customers who might leave a bad review. That's absolutely off the table. So those are our tips for doing that. I'll turn it back over to you, Jeff. Are you muted, Jeff?
Sorry, I had a little mute button fail. That's all right. That's me. Sorry about that. I just said something really profound, and now I forgot what I said. No, well, I'm so sorry. I muted myself, and I thought I'd be doing well. Anyways, I think what I was saying is I think your suggestion, Jess, on it's almost simpler than it sounds. That fine line between not bribing or survey begging, telling the customer, hey, my children will go hungry if you don't give me 5 stars, and just politely asking for a review. As an author, so I've written a few books, and I know that the reviews on Amazon are incredibly important to me. It drives book sales. And what I found is very successful is when people reach out to me, or I know they've read the book, I will often say to them, if you don't mind, I would really appreciate an honest review on Amazon. And I feel like in that way, I'm opening the door. I'm not pressuring them. I only ask once. I don't keep following up. I do it in the context of an existing conversation. So I feel like I have a little bit of permission. And by asking for an honest review, I'm also opening the door. Look, if you didn't like it, I'm not telling you what score to give. Guess what? Most people who are inclined in that situation to give a review are probably going to give you a positive review anyways. So it's I think a minimal risk if you're encouraging reviews, unless your service is terrible, in which case you probably have bigger problems. So how do you take action? I think we're giving you some very simple advice. Be active on review sites, especially where your customers are looking for your business. Keep your profile up to date. And it goes without saying, but even your hours of operation, your phone number, if you move, your address, all of these things should be up to date. When customers leave reviews, respond to those reviews and encourage customers to leave those reviews. So those things are I think, the basic steps that we could be doing. And you can do those right now. You can leave the webinar and put those into place. But Jess, I want to turn it back over to you because one of the reasons I asked you to join me today is I know that Womply offers some powerful tools. So the caveat I think for everybody tuning in, you don't need a tool like Womply to be active. A tool like Womply, though, potentially can help you take things to the next level. So Jess, maybe you can share a little bit about how Womply helps businesses improve their online reputation.
Sure, I'd love to. So in a nutshell, Womply helps small businesses attract new customers and keep those customers coming back in the door and spending with them. And we do all that keeping in mind that small business owners are some of the busiest people on the planet. So it's all with an eye towards saving time while doing it. So one of the things that we can help with, review sites are basically your best and cheapest form of advertising. I think Jeff mentioned that earlier. And that's especially true when you run a local business. That's how your new customers find you and they get a glimpse into what it's like to do business with you via the reviews and your replies to them. Womply provides one-stop shopping for managing your reputation sites online. You can see that here. You can see at a glance all the review sites you're listed on and your rating, which direction that's trending, how many total reviews you have for each site, how many of them are open, meaning they're waiting for a reply from you, and when your last review was left on that site. As I mentioned earlier, it's incredibly important to reply to all of those reviews, both the good ones and the bad ones, as it gives prospective customers a glimpse into what it would be like to do business with you. After all, word of mouth is still the name of the game, but that game has moved online. And now you can participate in it. That's the good news. So we make it easy for you to read and reply to reviews from all of the sites you're on in one place. You could log in here and reply to reviews from Google and Facebook and Yelp, and all the above. You can type a reply yourself over on the right-hand side, or we have some suggested replies for you to make it even easier, because sometimes you've got a little bit of writer's block. You don't know what you want to say. So it's really easy to see the review and pick one of the options we provide for you, and you're off to the races. It posts to the website for you. And there's one way that's even easier than that. If you turn on auto reply, we'll reply for you. So we'll alert you via email each time you get a new review, and we'll include the reply that we're planning on posting for you. If you like that reply, you don't have to do anything. Just sit back and rest assured that we're going to take care of it. And if you prefer to handle it yourself, maybe it's because you actually know that customer personally, or there's a specific problem the day they visited. Maybe your best cook was out sick, and you want to reference that. No worries. You just log into Womply, you reply yourself, and we'll hold off on replying. So it really couldn't be any easier to reply to all of your reviews. Now, we talked earlier about how to get more reviews, and one of the suggestions was to email or text your customers to ask for a review after they leave your place of business. And Womply makes it easy for you to do that as well. So this is an example of an email you can send out to your customers to, first of all, gather feedback and understand how things are working. And you can see over on the left side, you can select text message if you are collecting mobile numbers from your customers, or email if that's the contact information you have. They're invited to rate their experience. And when they click through, they also have access to an open text box where they can provide comments as well. Now, there's a wealth of useful information in customer feedback, and as a business owner, you can gain really great insights about what's working and what's not working for your customers. And the added benefit here is that if they give you a positive rating, we suggest that the customer review your business on one of the review sites you're listed on, so you can drive those positive reviews and hopefully move up in the search rankings like we saw in Jeff's experience in South Dakota. So you could pop up there and maybe Jeff will come and eat at your restaurant. And again, it couldn't be easier. We try to make it as turnkey as possible since we know you're all super busy. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you as it relates to online reviews, Womply's partner with scores of the nation's largest credit card processors. And if we're partnered with your processor, you have access to a pre-populated customer directory that includes each customer's transaction history with you, but it also includes the names and even contact information for a number of those customers. And that makes it super easy to reach out and ask a customer for a review. For example, this second customer that's listed, Frank, he spent a good amount of money with this business over time, has more than a few visits, and actually his last visit was just a few days ago. Chances are good that he'd give this business a positive review. So they could just click on that email button, select send a review, and or send a review request, and that would be sent off to Frank, and then he could take it from there. And I'll hand it, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had one more slide. And so if you're interested in learning more about Womply, we'd love to chat with you. You can schedule a demo on our site. You can just visit us at womply.com/demo, and we'd be happy to schedule that for you.
And if you are tuned into the live webinar, I've also just pushed a little link so you can at least check that out. I think it's at least worth looking into, because one of the powerful things about using software like this is it funnels everything from multiple sites in one place. And as Jess said, we're so busy as business owners and business leaders and customer service professionals that the less we have to go to multiple sites to get something done, the better. So something certainly to consider. And if you're watching the replay, you've got the website right there. I encourage you to check it out. At least walk through the demo and see what it might do for you. I want to share something with you as well. We're about to get to Q&A. So if you will, in the chat box, let us know what Haley has put up. Haley's already started us off with a question, so we'll get to that in just a moment. But just follow her lead or Haley's lead and share your questions in that chat box. I want to share one more thing with you. I imagine some of you tuned in already have this. But if you like today's webinar, you want to learn more about future webinars, or just want my weekly customer service tip of the week, if you sign up for the weekly tips, you're going to get one tip via email once per week. I'm also going to send you a free PDF of my book by the same name, which is Customer Service Tip of the Week. It has over 52 of my favorite customer service tips. And you can find out about upcoming events. So if you're watching the webinar replay or you're live today, you can simply text the word tips to 66866, or we'll put this up just for a moment. If you're on the live webinar, I'll push a link to you right now and you can get to that. So we're about to get to questions and answers and talk about online reviews in just a moment, and your questions about how you can use those to boost your business. So again, I encourage you to submit those via the chat box. One thing I think I wanted to share with you, before we get to the Q&A portion, let me just bring this back down right here. So I'll leave this up here. So last chance to click on the link. All right. Before we get to the Q&A portion, I think one of the things that's really interesting to me when you look at online reviews is that often the feedback that you're gaining from your customers is incredibly powerful, and not just negative reviews. If you look at the comments and trends, you'll often see very constructive feedback in your most positive reviews. And sometimes you'll even say your 5-star reviewers will mention something that could be done better, and they might mention the same thing that the 2-star reviewer mentioned. So pay careful attention, not just to the overall rating, but the trends as well. For example, a restaurant that I really, really used to enjoy, I don't go there anymore. Why? Because service quality's gone down. And if you look at their reviews, they reflect that they're trending downwards. And what's the issue? The biggest issue is the pace of service. Customers, once they're seated, have to wait way too long. And customers who say they give it 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars on down, all mention the same type of feedback. So if I'm running that restaurant, I'm going to figure out how to make my service more attentive, and I'm probably going to keep more customers. So let's get to your questions. And I've got a few here. Just, I know I want to ask you, but let's start with Haley's, because I think this is interesting. Encouraging employees to review, and also how do employees help and benefit customers in their reviews. So I think you mentioned that you're using Glassdoor, but I'm guessing that what you really mean is encouraging employees to review the business or review your product. And there was actually I don't know if it was a scandal, but there was a story about that recently, where there was a company, and it's probably a big one, and I'm just missing the name of the company, but it came out that a fair number of employees had been posting reviews of the product. I'm a big fan of transparency. And so if you're asking employees to review your business or product, I would be very, very careful about doing that. And if they're going to do that, if it's a product, I would ask them to be really clear that they're an employee if you're going to encourage them. And if it's a business, it's a tour company or it's a restaurant, I would be careful about having them do that, because it rings of being a little inauthentic if we're padding our reviews with employees who have kind of a vested interest in a positive outcome. On the other hand, reviews of Glassdoor can be very helpful to your business as an employer of choice. And what has become a best practice is asking, really applying the same techniques we talked about today, which is asking employees to leave an honest review and prompting employees, especially after specific events. So I think, again, you have to be really careful about that. And I would say in general, the word's still out. It's a tough one, because if you're padding your reviews, your external reviews with employee reviews, and customers get wind of that could have some backlash. I don't know, Jess, what do you think about this topic?
Yeah, I think as it comes to asking your employees to review your business, I think it's a pretty dangerous practice, just because, employees can become disgruntled and leave, and you never know what they're going to post. Also, let's say it's Yelp or Facebook. If their image shows up next to the review, your customers will probably, your regulars are going to recognize them and realize pretty quickly that was the employee. So I wouldn't do so much of that. If you're talking about, your employees reviewing you like on Glassdoor, I think absolutely that can help you attract more great talent. The other trick there that I recommend is timing, if you're going to ask them to do it, time it around a milestone or something really great that's happened. Maybe they just closed a big deal, or they got really great rating from a customer. Maybe they just hit a year with you and you've kind of celebrated them. Just because, they're going to be in a great state of mind, and they're going to feel really great about their contribution at that point, which means they're going to feel really great about, contributing to your business too.
And it's interesting that you bring that up, Jess, because I think here's something we need to be clear about delineating. If I want honest feedback, like I'm doing an employee engagement survey, or I want honest feedback from my customers, then tying it to a positive event is going to skew my data, right? There's a joke about employee engagement surveys that, withhold any kind of discipline and make sure you throw a pizza party the week before the survey launches, and that will help you get better scores. And it absolutely will. Just like focusing on only offering surveys to happy customers and don't offer surveys to unhappy customers, well, your survey scores will look great. So the caveat here is, if I'm trying to collect that feedback internally, I would not suggest doing that. However, we have to acknowledge that externally, so an online review site is not just feedback, it's advertising. And advertising here, I do want to skew the data in as transparent a way as possible. I want to skew the data to the positive. So now I do want to go to the employee after something positive and ask them to fill out the Glassdoor review. Or I go to the customer who's raving about what great service and say, would you mind sharing an honest review on Google? Let me send you a link. So there is a caveat there, I think, I want everybody to be aware of. If it's external, that's also advertising. I want to kind of nudge positive reviews without doing anything shady. Internally, I just want honest, unvarnished feedback. So such a great topic, great question. I want to kind of do a last call on questions from the audience, and we're here to answer whatever else you have. There's one I know comes up a lot, Jess, and I'd like to get your input on this one, because I get this from customer service leaders all the time, which is, how do you respond to a negative online review? And I think the caveat here is, especially the reviews where there's obviously things that, maybe they exaggerate, maybe they're less than truthful about their experience. And as a business leader, I think you want to defend your business, right? And say, no, that's not, you weren't waiting half an hour. You were only waiting 10 minutes. It wasn't that bad. What do you suggest, Jess? What should people do to respond to those negative reviews?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the positive reviews are probably pretty easy to reply to, right? It's easy to thank a happy customer. it's really hard to put your ego aside when you're replying to an unhappy customer. Because let's face it, if it's our business, it's like an extension of ourselves, right? So they're not complaining about our business, they're complaining about us. So the first thing I'd say is don't get into a debate with them. Don't debate facts. It's just a slippery slope. It's going to go in a bad direction, and it's going to make probably you look a bit petty to prospective customers. You've got to put your ego aside. And I'd say number one rule of thumb here is to just empathize with them, right? Put yourself in their shoes, because at the end of the day, they're people just like you and me, right? And so empathize with them, apologize that they didn't have a great experience. You can take a page out of Nathan's book at Seafood Kitchen and see if they'd be willing to come back in and give you another shot. You can do that either on the house, or you could even just lob it out there. I'd love for you to give us another try. But ultimately you want to acknowledge their pain point, empathize with them, and, keep a smile on your face the whole time. If you're having trouble getting over that hump of how do I get past feeling like I've been insulted or my business has been insulted, there's a tip from a customer service thought leader. His name is Micah, and he tells you to pretend it's like your grandma, your Italian grandma, right? You wouldn't get upset if your grandma told you that your risotto didn't taste delicious, right? You would empathize with her, say, "Oh my gosh, grandma, I'm so sorry. Let me try again." Or, "Do you have any tips?" So try to pretend there's somebody that's near and dear to you, that you care about, that you couldn't possibly be mad at, and that will help you, I think, get past the burn of a negative review and on to trying to find a solution for that customer.
I think that's such great advice. You have to get past the burn. And what I would suggest to folks is, again, keep in mind that when it's an external review, it's not just customer feedback, it's advertising. And so what message are you advertising, not just to that customer, but to everybody else who reads the review? And I will share with you a bit of kind of quirky science behind this. If customers, let's say, this comes from kind of a live in person, but I think it applies to reviews as well. If you're waiting in line and you see a negative interaction between an angry customer and an employee in front of you, science has told us, and there's been experiments, that if the employee handles it badly and kind of gives back to the customer what they're getting, even if the employee is not initially at fault, the customer waiting in line observing this whole thing is not going to be very empathetic. They're going to have a negative view of the employee as well as the other customer. If, on the other hand, the employee absorbs the angry customer and is polite and professional, the bystander waiting in line is actually more likely to empathize with that employee and feel like, wow, that person was unreasonable. You handled it so well. I like you even better. And the same thing really applies to online reviews. So if someone leaves a really nasty review and you respond and you're very professional and you don't try to flame them, or as Jess say, start debating facts, you're not just responding to that customer. Realize you're advertising your persona to everybody else who sees that review, and 80-something% of customers are seeking out negative reviews. And they're going to say, wow, that business leader is reasonable and so polite. They really care. I think I like them even more. So that negative review with your positive professional response actually makes your business that much more marketable and can help you. So terrific suggestions. I don't think we have any other questions today. So I've got our Twitter handles here. So if you want to continue the conversation on Twitter, or if you happen to be tuning into the replay and not the live version, this is how you connect with Jess and myself. Jess, I had a lot of fun. You provided such great insights today. Thank you for being part of the webinar.
Thanks so much, Jeff. It's always great to chat with you.
You bet. And to everybody else tuning in, thank you for being part of it today. And we'll hope to see you at the next one.